Good morning, grown Black folks talk. Honest civics regarding the most recent Supreme Court ruling around prayer in schools. How do I unbreak this news to you? Uh, as usual, we're going to let it marinate because people have very strong opinions about the federal government's supposed intrusion into allowing prayer in schools. How do I unbreak this news to you? If you should ever sit down and read the Constitution from beginning to end, I have done this. And if even you should read the entire Declaration of Independence from beginning to end. So we'll take the two founding documents, although the Supreme Court adjudicates the Constitution, just in case the term separation of church and state just happened to move over from one to the other. And in fact, Thomas Jefferson is indeed the author of the phrase, however. The term and the idea of separation of church and state appears neither in the Declaration nor in the Constitution. It does not appear except in a private letter from Thomas Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist Association several years after the Constitution was already completed and ratified. And what was under discussion was the Danbury Baptist Association. The history of the Baptist Church in America is begins with deep persecution. The Baptist denomination that we think of today was called the Anabaptist because they believed that people should be baptized after conversion by immersion in the biblical practice, as opposed to just sprinkling folks in at birth, as the Catholic and the Episcopal Church did. Because in the context of England, there was a state church. And before that, there had been a different, you had the Church of England. And before that had been the Catholic Church. And of course, these were both church and state were very much combined because the state and the church were united. The Pope was the head of all Catholics and also therefore was able to give kings orders on what they could and could not do. And then Henry VIII, because he wanted to get a divorce from the wife who loved him the most, Catherine of Aragon, he declared himself the head of the Church of England. So for you to attempt to belong to a different denomination was enough to get you killed. If you were then going to go say to another denomination that they were anti-biblical in the way they were doing things, just getting numbers in by sprinkling and not being concerned about them being converted, you wanted them to be part of the state church because that was a necessity of their life. To have someone consider that their baby could not be part of the Church of England from birth was pretty much tantamount to saying that they were an English citizen by the time the United States was founded. England had a whole war about the Church of England versus the Catholic Church. That went on for a minute. The Baptists, having come through that time period, were very concerned that they, as a denomination, would not be persecuted for having a different set of beliefs than average churchianity. I didn't say Christianity because this is an argument inside of church practice, inside Christianity. Neither Thomas Jefferson nor James Madison were contemplating anything like another religion like Islam or Buddhism, and Judaism was barely tolerated. So no one was really thinking about that right now. Well, not right now, but at that point in history. So Thomas Jefferson was writing to the Danbury Baptist Association about the idea that is actually enshrined in the Constitution. Congress, First Amendment, shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. That is, there will never be a church of the United States. And that is as far as the Constitution goes. Now, I'm not a lawyer. All I can always say, I've associated with some good lawyers over the years, and I've watched quite a few Matlock and Perry Mason reruns. And that is the limit to which, and I've been involved in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit during discovery and having to provide documents. So much so that I was considered by the lawyers their extra paralegal. That's as far as I can go. So put all those grains of salt on there in a row. But I do know that you can't take a private letter written after a legal document is ratified and use that to interpret the document when it comes later than the document. And then it would help if you were going to do that. Thomas Jefferson didn't write the Constitution. James Madison did. So in fact, the Supreme Court yesterday was correct. Their ruling, getting the federal government out of the question of whether public school teachers can lead prayers in school based on the Constitution, is correct. The separation of church and state is not a constitutional doctrine. It never was. And the Supreme Court that said it was in grave error, because you have to assume they can read at least as well as little old me. And they knew they were doing a fraud then. And you have been lied to by every liberal politician since then, because all of them can read. Be thankful that you live in a country in which the federal government is not supposed to be in every classroom. The Republicans have not shouted the alarm about this because it was convenient for them to have the Democrats lie to you. The Republicans are actually interested in, there's a little bit more about Republicans and Democrats than meets the eye. The two names have older meanings. Republicans want to run a republic. The United States is a constitutional republic with some democratic additions, but it is a representative constitutional republic. So Republicans understand that the representatives that actually run what happens in schools is your county board of supervisors and your school board. So what Republicans have been doing is operating the republic. By the way, read the Constitution. White landowning males. So the Republicans are busy. The reason they keep beating Democrats and independents on everything is because they're actually running the republic like a republic. The Democrats are for democracy. Demo meaning people, Kratos meaning rule, rule of the people. The Democrats keep selling this lie about this being a country ruled by the people, but they keep getting beat because no, this is a republic with some democratic elements. This is not a democracy. And so the people, 68% of us are not Republicans. But we keep getting cut off at the pass. Why? Because we don't understand how to make use of our representatives. So the Republicans are out here taking over your county board supervisors, taking over your school boards. Side note to the side note for those of you who want to be hypergamous. Should you catch yourself a hypergamous white, get yourself a conservative white male, yes, he's going to take good care of you so you don't have to work. But what you're going to be expected to do is be involved in your local politics with all that time off you have. How do you think the Republicans are able to get so many things done? 40% of American women are involved in getting these things done. See, that's the other side of having this conservative lifestyle where the man goes out and works and the woman can be at home. What do you think all these women have been doing? They have time to go up to the schools. They have time to organize politically to get people on school boards who are going to talk about not even having the story of slavery told in certain states. That's what's going on. And the Republicans are okay with the Democrats lying to you about democracy in this country, because as long as you listen to the Democrats who have now lied for decades about the separation of church and state, that leaves plenty of room for you not to compete on the local level, plenty of room not to compete on the state level, so they can run all over you. And this is precisely what the Republicans are doing. They have waited a bunch of years. They could not do anything about, quote, prayer being taken out of schools with a liberal court those decades ago. They put in place working the wheels of the republic to finally get a group of people on the Supreme Court who are willing to read. Because like I just said, whether you like what happened yesterday or not, you have been lied to. The Constitution never promised you separation of church and state in the way that it is commonly interpreted. The Constitution promises you that there will never be a singular church of the United States, a singular denomination, and that you will have your freedom to practice your religion. Now, if you're going to be an originalist, we're still talking about a very narrow band of things. There are many sects of Christianity going on at that time. There are some deists. Thomas Jefferson was among them. And then there are very handful sprinkling of Jewish people and atheists at this time. That's a very narrow band. However, you can stretch religion out to accommodate all the other people in the United States of America. So, we have Muslim teachers leading Muslim prayers and Buddhist teachers leading meditation. By the way, in California, that's actually already happening. Meditation and mandalas and pure lands and all the rest. I was a middle school teacher. I've actually seen all that working its way in. But see, now it doesn't have to work its way in. This is going to become very interesting when other religions decide, other people who teach decide that they're going to exercise their rights and invite their students to join them in their prayers. This is going to get real interesting when that happens. But this is because the federal government is not supposed to come down all the way to what your teachers and your children are doing in the classroom. They are not supposed to be able to compel your children in a public school setting to participate or not participate. So what you want to look for those of you in states that this is going to become an issue, is that it has to be voluntary. And if you don't like it, you got to go find a way to meet those conservative women who are working with the school board in your area and make sure those representatives know they have to represent your interest. This is not a democracy. This is a republic, which is why the Republicans who understand how to actually operate a republic are running all over you. This is why Donald Trump was in office the first time. The Republicans understand the republic works. You do not have direct election of the president. You have an electoral college picked by your governors. And there are, at the moment, more Republican governors than there are Democratic. And because the Democrats refuse to do serious civic education because they want you to think you just can have your will about things, they're going to continue to lie to you about this and many other things. The Constitution never gave separation of church and state in the sense that the public sphere is not supposed to have any religion in it. That never existed. But the Democrats kept lying about it because it was in their interest to do it, and the Republicans kept quiet because it was in their interest for you to remain ignorant also. This is sometimes why Republicans get beside themselves and call Democratic voters low information voters. This is what that comes from, because there's a lot of things that Democrats haven't told you. I listen to my fellow journalists here in secular, California is 25% secular humanists. And I'm like, can y'all read? I listen to my former colleagues sitting up here talking about this stuff. And I'm like, can y'all read? Can you read the Constitution from just read it? But you got to be at least as smart as Mike Pence. You got to actually read it. Ain't no such creature. Today, however much you may not like the outcome, the Supreme Court was correct. Next issue, how do you get the time in your life and the wealth in your life to be able to meet the women whose men have provided for them to do the school board? See, in the Black community, as a Black woman, it's very convenient for us to talk about all the things we're able to do by ourselves and how Black women in luxury and Black women with a life of ease. Okay, while you're doing that, and Black women living a soft life, meanwhile, your white, Asian, and Latino counterparts are heading to the school board with the time that they have off, especially your white ones are out there and getting people to take stuff out of books and getting people to lead prayers that you may not want prayed over your children in school. So, can we include a definition of wealth for anybody that allows us to be able to get into those spaces and do the things we need to do on those school boards? Because now it comes down to your county school board and your county supervisors who have to make decisions about whether or not public prayers will be led in school. Now it has to come all the way back down to the school board. All politics is local because the Supreme Court is right and has removed the federal government from this conversation, which means, like I said yesterday, we've got to go, well, not yesterday, yeah, the day before yesterday, because it'll be Tuesday morning when you see this, we have to actually go back to work on our local level. Like I said, how do I unbreak this news? You were lied to. We all were lied to. The Supreme Court actually was right today. The federal government has no business going into the school, according to the Constitution, has no constitutional business being in a public school telling people whether or not they can pray publicly. The First Amendment says the Congress cannot establish a state religion, in essence, but it does not say whether teachers can publicly talk about their faith and lead voluntary prayers. The federal government is not supposed to have that much control over what happens in your school. Your school board is responsible, your representatives. So go get with your representatives on your local school boards and tell them what you want. All right, now again, next video, how do we get the kind of thinking about wealth that will allow us to have time to actually engage with our local politics, among other things? We have to talk next about what I intended to do yesterday, was talk about a gentleman named Buckminster Fuller. Probably never heard of him. There's no reason for most of us to have heard of him, but then again, you probably didn't know the Democrats have been lying to you for 50 years either. We're going to have to learn a lot of things we didn't know we needed to know. Thank you for listening to this video, and I hope it doesn't upset you too much. But if you read the Constitution, you will find out. And if you look up Thomas Jefferson, the letter to the Danbury Baptist Association, Danbury, D-A-N-B-U-R-Y, Baptist Association, you will find out that what I'm telling you is the facts, and it's been the facts for more than 200 years. I'm sorry, but I have to tell you the truth. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.